Welcome to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I am your host, Estelle Bingham, and together we'll be delving into the profound meaning of love, the driving force of purpose, and the beauty of connection that shapes the fabric of our lives. In each episode, I sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals out there to understand the ways love has touched them. Melissa Hemsley is a former private chef turned food columnist, best-selling cookbook author, real food activist, and sustainability champion. Melissa is passionate about spreading the power of feel-good food, food that not only tastes delicious, but nourishes your body. She's written 6 cookbooks, including her latest book, Real Healthy, which is full of easy, everyday recipes to help you unprocess your diet. And I love, Melissa, that you're here on the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I'm super excited.
Mm-hmm. And I really like the studio that you've chosen to do it in, because I've been to a few studios in my time, and this feels lovely. It smells lovely, lovely
Good.
people.
Yeah, cozy. Cozy is a big thing, isn't it?
Yes.
We love cozy. We love home. And Melissa, you are, all of you're kind of like in your energy and your vibration, you have that wonderful combination of warm, down to earth, really approachable, accessible, like you're a girl's girl, really. You're just, you've got that love in you that sort of just exudes. And what's for me, this book, Real Healthy, and it's one of many books because you've written a few books now. This is the one that I've really tuned into. I'd say that I'm probably your target audience because I do actually like to cook from scratch when I can. I have a lot of information around food, but still I'll find myself being that person who might pick something up that's ultra processed. But it's also, how do we really bring in sustainable alternatives in our day-to-day, our well-being? Like, it's a real thing, and being in wellness, as you know, I'm, and helping people sort of come back to themselves and really think about, often quite deep emotions and they're parts of their stories. Food and how we eat every day is fundamental in that process of healing. So,
yeah. Oh, you that was just beautiful. I was just thinking, I'd love you to write something like that for my next book. Should I write a next book? Because that was a gorgeous summary of where society is in 2025, where everything gets thrown in the way as obstacles to getting the healthier and joyful bit of nourishment on the table. As I walked in today, I said to you, I think I've got some nuts.
You did.
And I got to my rucksack, which has been doubling up as my baby's nappy bag. I had to take all her stuff out and put mine back in. And somewhere along the way, I misplaced. I was trying to also give them to my boyfriend a jar of nuts. This is like an old, mustard jar. And one thing I do without fail, and today is literally the day I failed, because I would have loved to have shared them with you, it being the mid-afternoon slump time, is I put some mixed nuts and sometimes a date or two or like a prune, whatever. It just goes in. And then without a doubt, I know that I've got something on my person. Mixed nuts if possible, because we know it's all about variety and diversity now.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you've got your nuts, bonus, you're away. If you've got mixed nuts, even better. And I try and place things in easy, strategic places so that I am supporting myself by just making it so easy. It's a conscious decision every day to look at a to-do list and say, how am I going to nourish myself today? So I decided that I could squeeze in a bunch more emails, or I could get on the tube here a few stops less. So I walked along the river to Westminster, and it gave me 20 minutes along the river, and it was really lovely, and it was fresh, and it was crispy, and it moved my body. It made me feel better, and then I got on the tube. I think food is a great gateway for feeling better, because we should / have to / are privileged enough, most of us, to eat 3 times a day. So we've got the chance to upgrade or make some switches. But I also feel, if I feel out of a rut of any part of my looking after myself routine, that walk will instantly motivate me to look after myself better. So a big thing I do is, even if I don't know what I'm eating, breakfast, lunch and dinner, snacks, It saves me so much money. Nuts get so much good press and people don't talk about seeds enough, but seeds also tend to be cheaper.
Mm.
So I'll always make sure I've got some sort of mix
So a
in my
pumpkin
bag.
seed.
Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds.
What I love about pumpkin seeds is, and this is, I'm not sure if you know about this, but you can give them to dogs.
I have not done that and I shall straight away.
So the thing to do is you crush them in a mortar with a mortar and pestle,
Yes.
and you can give them to dogs, and they kill parasites. They completely
That's
kill
wonderful.
worms. You can give them to cats as well. You know, you think, oh, a few pumpkin seeds, but really you're holding the world in your hand.
And a lot of people, of course, have been paying attention to the a big American study that came out, I think, 2 years ago about those that were studied that had the healthiest, most diverse microbiome ate 30 different plants a week on average. So there's lots of talk now, and you'll start to see it in supermarket branding of this 30 veg pledge. And veg can be nuts, seeds, beans, your standard carrots, broccoli type veg, olive oil, olives, chocolate, coffee, they all count too, spices. But the idea being, instead of just thinking, eat five a day, 5 fruit and veg a day, a banana, an orange, bit of broccoli, same old, that actually by diversifying our diets, by reaching for, as inspiration, not to beat yourself up with, 30 different plant points a week, you are increasing the variety and the diversity of your microbiome, which then, as we know, our guts hold 70% of our immune system, our guts, our second brain, the way it affects our brain health, our mental health, so much of how we feel. You're getting that extra bit. So I think it's like thinking of sprinkles throughout the day, of eating what is convenient and what's accessible and what's affordable and what's not going to stress you out, but adding to it. So rather than thinking about taking away. And I know that you're a big fan of thinking about abundance, and I have realized in my 39 years, I'm 40 this year, which
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
I kind of just realized that, and I'm kind of excited. I remember dreading my 30th, that I really am determined to not think I'm lacking time, I'm lacking resources, I'm lacking, that feeling of like, oh my God, it's this time and I'm only going to get 6 hours sleep. I'm trying to transfer the feeling of lack into abundance and flow.
Actually, everything, all nuggets of wisdom that we need to be hearing. And I want to loop back round though, just to microbiome, because obviously it's made the news, isn't it? It's hit kind of the mainstream over the past few years. This idea of the gut health, our gut bacteria, our gut health being really fundamental to our immune system, being able to fight all sorts of things. What do you feel, like if we could have a few, a sort of like we've got the idea of nuts, what else is like a good, an easy one?
There are so many easy ones. So I'll try and do quick fire in a way, because then we can get through more. I would also say don't underestimate free ones like just chewing. Because so digestion is a huge, long process, and you've got everything from when you smell or think about food or see food, your saliva goes, you've got all these enzymes going, then the food goes down your body, and then you get mechanical digestion, and then you get churning and mixing and more enzymes, and then you get into the large intestine and you get bacteria working on the last bits of food. So it's this whole process. So if you can start helping yourself out by chewing more, and I am guilty of this, by not chewing, and most of us don't, I think adding sprinkles of nuts, seeds, spices, herbs, if you think of those sort of 4 things that you can sprinkle, and I would add olive oil to that, really good olive oil. Save your good olive oil, your expensive olive oil for the final drizzle. If you want to take it a bit further, you could look at hemp seed oils and flaxseed oils, but they've got a bit more of a oomphy taste. So, go easy on them when you start. You could introduce fermented foods. So it could be something like a sauerkraut or kimchi. And if you're not used to those amazing punchy flavors, maybe start off with, every time you have yogurt, you could add a little bit of kefir, which is fermented milk. So, you might not want to swap your yogurt for your kefir, but you might want to go 80% yogurt to 20% kefir would be really nice. Or you could add kefir to a creamy dressing. Look at kombucha, which is quite often, there's so many great ones. I love Momo kombucha. They've got a green mandarin. And just in general, adding variety. So, if you're going to make a bolognese or a soup, instead of adding just white onions, yellow onions, you could add a bit of red onion. You could add leek. You could add spring onion. every single one of those counts as this amazing extra bit of diversity that your body will love. Like your body is sat there with these different microbes and they come alive with different foods. So that is a great thing to do. And some of those are more expensive than others. Kombucha obviously is going to be £3.50. But at the same time, a lot of us spend £4.50 on a coffee. So I think it's deciding what works for you. Good old fashioned 49p a tin beans, and not just chickpeas and maybe a black bean, maybe each week challenging yourself to get a different can of beans in there. Your kidney beans, your borlotti beans, cannellini beans, butter beans. So that kind of diversity too.
I love that. I really love that. And I love the idea of this sprinkle because, I notice with my smoothies.
What's in your smoothies?
So I've got an amazing smoothie. All sorts of, I put the kind of some good tropical fruits in there, an apple, but the chia seeds and some flaxseed oil for when we're menopausal is really powerful. But the chia seeds are amazing. So would you say to soak or not to soak a chia seed?
Well, you can soak it in different ways. So for example, if I make my smoothie with chia seeds, I normally don't drink it straight away. So
same.
It's
and so
then soaked up anyway. Yeah. I buy frozen organic berries, which are a third of the price.
Yeah, which is that's what I was doing with. I do the tropical mango, but organic and
yes. So sometimes what I do is I simmer them down to make a sort of, literally just shove them in a pan. Almost while dinner's finishing, I'll put them on. And I have that with yogurt or I add it onto porridge. So it's kind of soaking in that sense. One of the reasons it's also great is because you can batch it. So I will maybe do 3 days worth of a smoothie or overnight oats with chia. And then that makes life easier. You're making your breakfast 2 or 3 times a week instead of every single day, which is this idea of how do you eat well? You've got to do it every single day. And you know what? We grew up, didn't we, in this idea that when you exercised, it had to be really hard or just don't bother, or it had to be a whole hour. And I think that really did us such a disservice because then you went, well, I've only got 20 minutes or even 45 minutes, or I'm exhausted to go and do a strenuous workout. And then so I know I did, I just give up. Whereas I wish I had been shown that there was a different way of moving your body and that 30 minutes could be as beneficial as an hour, or a walk, which I intuitively knew was good for me, was just as good. And me, as someone with PCOS and then diagnosed anxiety and ADHD and on an IVF journey, I wish I had listened to my body, which was saying, no, I don't like these cortisol forming or cortisol amplifying workouts. Actually, what I really want is not just yoga, the most restorative yoga. So I'm not a huge fan of vinyasa, because now I've done restorative yoga. I'm like, okay, that's my thing.
Hi, it's Estelle here, and I'm so excited to share my new book with you, Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth. This is more than just a book. It's an invitation to come home to your heart. Within its pages, you'll find the guidance to reconnect with your true essence. Through gentle meditations, heart-centered practices, and soulful wisdom, you'll learn how to release old patterns, embrace your divine spark, and manifest a life filled with love, purpose, and connection. Remember, you are love, you are light, and you are infinitely powerful. Wow, so there's a lot there. I mean, I want to talk about the batch cooking because I've got a question about that, but then I'd love to come back to your story about your IVF journey and being diagnosed with ADHD and all of those things. But I do want to talk about batch cooking because if we want to give people a way through, it just feels sometimes being a batch cooker feels like, you have to be quite organized and am I freezing it and what am I doing and all of that stuff. But do you feel like it is the way through? Like, so I'm sort of challenging myself really to this. I'm taking one of your recipes and I'll tell you which one in a minute. And I will batch cook it. And then I'll see how it changes my life because I really believe that it can.
Oh, I love you challenging it. Yeah. Well, are you going to tell me which one it is now?
I will.
Okay.
I feel I'm going to do your bean with tomato. It's got tomato base. It's a white bean. Is your white bean like cassoulet?
Is it white bean chili with frozen sweet corn?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a lovely one to do.
Yeah.
And perfect for this time of year. Actually, I remember recipe testing it in the summer, and it was lovely then. It was like warming, but not hugely heavy. That's a great one to do. So I'll say again, like most things, batch cooking is flexible and it can be unique to you. So you can batch cook something. For example, my family adore bolognese. We have about 50% with mince and the rest is lentils. We put sort of 7, 8 different vegetables into it, loads of oregano, thyme, so we're getting all of our herbs in. And when we cook it, because we love it so much, my baby loves it so much, we 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 make like 16 portions
Wow.
because we get through it a lot, and it's a bit more chopping, but because it's a recipe we can do without thinking, with a podcast on while chatting to each other about our day, it's something that we can do without thinking. So it's not a hardship for us. And I'm sure most families have got their comfort food. And that's the other thing. Not only is it nutritious, it's comforting. And I think that the one thing I think everybody should do is, what's your comfort food? And then make sure you've got it either in your freezer, or if it doesn't lend itself to freezing, have the ingredients in your house so that whenever you feel like you need a hug or something lovely to look forward to after a hard day, you can make something really nice for yourself. So when we make bolognese, we make 16 portions, but that's batch cooking. But also making one extra portion is batch cooking. So it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. You don't have to have a gigantic freezer. If you live alone, you don't need to feel overwhelmed by it. You can also do things. So if you think about a bolognese as an example, or the white bean chili that you mentioned, they've all got a base of onions and, carrots and celery and garlic, let's say. So what you could do is, if you want to batch cook, you could make a big batch of onions, garlic, celery, carrots. And then you could say, okay, I'm going to put some of that towards a bolognese, some of that towards a soup, some of that towards, I don't know, a risotto, some of that towards a frittata. And by that, I mean to your onions, garlic, celery, and carrots, sweated down, all lovely and soft and sweet. You would then crack in some eggs and some cheese and make a frittata or some frittata muffins that you could grab and go, or you could serve with a salad like that for that kind of quiche feel. So elements of your food could become batch cooking, or you could make a gorgeous, beautiful squash soup and you could make a big pot of it, and then you could separate the portions out, and you could add coconut milk and some chili to one. Or you could drizzle the other one with, I don't know, some chili oil or some pesto, and you could take it down an Italian vibe or a Mediterranean vibe. So it's about what you add on top, how you move the base, what you could turn it into. You might have your bolognese with pasta one day, obviously. You might have it on toast another day. You could have it in a baked potato. The world is your oyster. So I hope I can help make you sort of choose your own adventure. And one of the bits in the books that I really like, as you said, I've been doing this cookbook malarkey for a long time now. And one thing I've kind of realized with my publishers is, the more they say that a part of the book isn't important, the more I actually realize when it comes out that it is. So I had one book which is called Eat Green, and it's about how to get more from your food and waste less, because they say, we waste about a third of the food that's produced, whether it's at the farm, during transport, at the supermarket, or because we don't get around to eating it in our houses, in our bins. And so I wanted to challenge that with that book. And in it, I wrote a double-page spread about food and when it's in season, because one, it was a better way of connecting to nature for me and my mental health. And also you can be more excited about food as foods come into season. And you can also potentially, it doesn't always work like this, unfortunately, take advantage of when food is in abundance or surplus and get a better deal. It's not always like that now, because the temperatures mean we don't have our seasons as much.
No.
This is quite an unusual cold spell. Sometimes
Yeah.
it can be quite warm at this time of year. So, long story short, in this book, lots of people said to me, I love your recipes, but what about all the times when I'm not making a recipe? So what I did was create these choose your own adventure type pages where it's like how to build a really satisfying salad, a sandwich, a breakfast, a sweet. Like, what are the elements in it that make it satiating? So, for example, with a sweet treat, a lot of people eat a lot of vegetables and pulses and all the things that are so called good for them. But then they might get to later in the day and go, right, my hormones are kicking in, or I'm stressed. I mean, there's no end to the reasons that we look for sugar. And we don't have to look very far because it's everywhere. Like, you cannot walk down the street without finding someone selling you sugar. And even in savory foods, there's
It's there.
sugar.
Yeah.
And that's fine because, at home I might add sugar or maple syrup or honey, but at least I know what I'm adding. It's when sugar becomes like the first or second ingredient on a label. So one of the ways that you can support the feeling or the taste of sugar is, I talk about in the book, is, you can add a little bit of sea salt to your sweets because that brings out the sweetness, or you can add cinnamon to your sweets or to your breakfast because that's blood sugar balancing, or you can make sure there's a really nice combination of fat and sweetness in your pudding because then that makes it satiating. And when you're satiated, you don't overeat,
Yeah.
or you're less likely to overeat. So then you cherish what you are eating and that becomes enough and you're not looking for the next thing. And I think like a recurrent theme of me in my life and the feeling of running out of time, and that feeling of running out of time to have a baby, or running out of time to prove myself, or running out of time to, I don't know what I was running to and from, is this feeling like what's next, that I've tried to like incorporate more satiation into actual life,
Mm.
and really appreciating and sitting with lovely things as they happen instead of thinking on to the next. And I don't know enough about ADHD, and I don't think there is enough known about ADHD to know whether that's an element of it.
Mm.
But I definitely find when I sit with things and feel satisfied with what's there instead of thinking the next, that it tends to calm me.
Because we are on the run a lot. So you were talking about running out of time. And that's a really big thing, obviously, that I see in my work is this fear, this terror that we have that we're running out of time, that it's all, we're always running out of time. So, and you can see that in every single age group feels like they're running out of time. I mean, I see 22-year-olds who feel like they're running out of time, right? So it's an illusion as well. It is an illusion. It's obviously today is the day. So it's this thing of just being in the moment and really meeting the moment.
Meeting oneself in that moment.
Yeah.
I've planned today without my child, who's 18 months old, and she's very happy. She's with my mum, and my boyfriend is probably at this point of the day with her. And so I've packed in a lot today because I don't want to spend these big chunks away from her. And it's a funny feeling because I'm both meeting myself as I am, like me, Melissa, 39-year-old human. And then I'm also Melissa, the mum. And I'm quite pleased with how I'm not feeling. I really don't think I'm feeling at all guilty. I'm missing her, but in an excited way, like almost like it's just a bit weird. Like I'm gonna climb into bed later and cuddle her all night. And so I'm like looking forward to that. But I know she's having a fantastic time, and I know I'm having a fantastic time. But I was also really aware of this day. I often have to like, whoa there, Nelly, myself.
Yeah. Calm it down.
Calm it down.
Calm it down.
Maybe take those 10 other things off the list,
Tell me about how you feel that impacts your anxiety. Do you feel like that's got, what? Yeah.
So it's doing my anxiety no favors at all. Nothing, because, what I'd love to know with you. So when you write your to-do list, when that doesn't happen, what do you say to yourself as you sort of close your notebook that day?
So this is a really big thing, isn't it? It's a really good question. Just by how you flagged the whole experience is what's underneath the experience for you. Okay, so how that sits in your psyche is with not enough compassion, okay, for self. So
Big
where
time.
that sits in your psyche is with your punisher. And that voice is underneath this is deeply in charge of this bus, right? Of the to-do list bus, okay? So if we can put someone in charge of the to-do list bus, and that really is your authentic self that we grow, who just is perfectly imperfect and is just a messy human just looking to do what we do every day and show up in the best way that we can. And we really have compassion for ourselves. And if we don't have compassion for ourselves, we go on a journey to grow more compassion for ourselves. If we haven't got enough, or that's literally like, I don't even know what that is, because that's often what I hear. I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I don't know how, and it can sound really sort of woo-woo and new age and out there and like something that the Dalai Lama says, or, Buddha spoke about compassion and it's like a million miles away from your reality. in this moment when we're giving ourselves a hard time about everything. So of course the to-do list is perfect. It's that your punisher, your saboteur has a field day with driving that bus. It's like I'm gonna be driving this bus into a brick wall any minute soon, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to get to the end of the day and give you a good kick in about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, not even the end of the day, half the day. Oh my God, you've not even made it
Yeah.
10th of the way through your list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So how I work with my lists, and I do this also, and I've done this. I've been doing, I call them cosmic canvases, but I've been doing, now they're in the mainstream as vision boards, but I've been visioning for years, since my early 20s, and I'm 52, 53 now. I'll have something on the vision board, and I may bring it into the next year, and I may bring it into the next year. And then what I'll find in the fourth year is that, I'll bring something around and I'll come back to it. But I just sit. So where I sit, where I'm holding that vision is in a really compassionate place, because I'm trusting the flow. I'm trusting that it's coming to me. So I keep trusting, even when it's like, what do you mean? It's 18 months later, that hasn't happened. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I just speak to that part of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I bring it back around to this compassion. And I say, no, I'm coming for this. This is my future. But it's the same with the to-do list. So I have a to-do list at the moment. I suppose the dopamine hit, because that's where a to-do list really has a dopamine hit attachment to it, because it's like tick, So we've got to be really clear that we are not being controlled by the things outside of ourselves, that we are mastering. So I'll look at my to-do list, and it will be from 6 months ago, and I'll go back, and I create new to-do lists, and I just bring things along with me. So I might cross
And you don't beat yourself up for going, oh.
So I may cross one thing out from the day, and there's 10 things to do. I'll either leave that to-do list and I'll start another to-do, but then I go back in and I go, and slowly, and I'm okay if that to-do list is met by me over however long it takes. For me, it's about showing up. It's just, if we show up every day, that's the best. That's what I'm going to do to meet my future, to co-create my reality. I'm showing up and trusting. So there, with that anxiety, and remember, we're all working with different things. So anxiety is a piece that many, many, many people work with and will understand and relate to, because it's just real. And how do we work with our anxiety? Like, our anxiety isn't the enemy. Like, how are we compassionate? That 20-minute walk was that self-love in action. And that's also then reverberates to your to-do list.
I need to write this down. See, here's me wanting to write that down. That's my self-love in action. I love that. My friend Sarah Wilson wrote the book, First We Make the Beast Beautiful. And it's about her anxiety.
Beautiful. I love that.
I think you really like each other a lot.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And she sort of, instead of just making it this monster that she hides from or, is terrified of, she approaches it. And I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that, because I forgot a very big piece of it, which is the dopamine hit that a lot of people are searching for. And I think a lot of people with ADHD, whether they know it or they have it or not, whether it's been diagnosed or not, are looking for. A lot of us have maybe grown up with caregivers who place such an importance on getting things done and getting things done really well. And if you haven't finished the list, then you just shit. And again, you just reminded me, I've been with my partner for 10 years now. And not only are we, boyfriend and girlfriend, we have a child and we have a dog. And those of us with dogs know that, the responsibility of being a dog mum and dad is hugely important.
Yeah.
And so long before we had our child, we were parents to our dog for 10 years and still are, thank God. And it involves life organization, whether you've got a dog or a child or not. Being in a relationship with someone involves organization. And I used to say to him, does my head in that you don't have a list? I think I was almost jealous that he lives life without this to-do list. And he'd be like, I've just got it all up here. And it just used to really irritate me. And he has a list of sorts, but it's not like my kind of list. And he's actually got to the point now where and I'm tempted to think, my whole life I've written lists, almost to the point of obsession. And maybe there's a different way forward for me, but it's so funny. The second I saw your notebook, I commented on it. The magpie effect, I see a notebook, I see someone's notebook, I see how they organize themselves. And I think, I want some of that. Give me some of that.
Well, sometimes our medicine is to do more and sometimes our medicine is to do less, right? So sometimes people who don't write lists need to write the odd list. And sometimes people who write a kind of list obsessed need to step back because our medicine changes. You know, it's let me just allow this to flow and trust that I don't need the list to come and beat me up at the end of the day or punish me in
Yeah.
mid-morning or whatever it is. What does it feel like if I allow, I give permission to relinquish some control? And then there are people who actually could do with a little bit more
Structure.
organization and
Yeah.
structure. And so it's finding the sweet spot, you know, and it's finding the sweet spot in a really gentle way. Because I always say, the other thing I say is, you know, and I love the title making, you know, make the beast beautiful, is that these parts of us are not things, they're not parts of us that we have to run away from. They're parts of us that we integrate and they're superpowers. You've spoken about your ADHD and how do you feel that has affected you through your life? Because your diagnosis was more recent, but what do you,
Yeah.
you know, the perfectionism, not only from the family environment
Mm.
growing up, you know, where the parents say, you're not enough unless, you know,
Mm.
there's that's the messaging,
Mm.
unless you are the best at this or the best at that, or you
Mm.
finish, you tick off every part of this list.
So I found out I got my ADHD diagnosis. And I didn't just get it. I mean, it's a long process, and I went private because the waiting list was so long, and it was something that I felt I really at the time needed to know because I was trying to conceive and I was trying to go on my IVF journey. So what happened was I was working with a therapist and she said to me, I feel like I can't, which I think is amazing. She went, I feel like I can't take you any further. And I'd like you to go and see it was actually her therapist about some trauma release work. And when I walked into that session with him, he said within the first 20 minutes, has anyone ever suggested you might have ADHD? And I sort of burst out laughing and sort of like a weird, like, bah, like a kind of laugh cry. And this was about 3 and a bit years ago. And it was like I kind of knew I might have it, but had never talked about it. And no therapist before had ever picked up on it or had never shared with me. So then I realized as I was trying to conceive and going through IVF that whatever the outcome, if I did have ADHD, I wouldn't be able to take the drugs because they're not compatible with the drugs I was trying to take. So I thought, okay, but if I find out, it might help me in other ways. And that's another thing that I wish I had known sooner. If I thought I might have ADHD, that's you don't have to take drugs with that. There's different ways you can work. So, sorry, going back to your question, which is how do I think it affected? Like I said before, there's so much we don't know about ADHD yet. And there's so many unique aspects to it. So for me, it felt relieving in a way when we did do the discovery, and I got referred to a psychiatrist, and I did the process with the psychiatrist. It felt relieving in a way. And one of the exercises that you do, which is actually pretty fascinating and makes me quite emotional just thinking about it, you get given a questionnaire and you get asked to give a copy of the questionnaire to someone that knows you really well. So I gave it to my boyfriend, and you both fill out a questionnaire about you.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's got like A, B, C, Ds, or would you say this is very unlikely, less likely, very unlikely? So you go through these questions, and one, it's emotional doing, and then it's emotional knowing that someone else is being asked quite intense questions about you, and you don't read each other's and you send them off, and then it comes back, and that's one part of the diagnosis process. And when it came back, she said, yeah, you've got ADHD. And it's interesting looking at the bits that you both agreed on about yourself and the bits that you didn't. And one of them was the masking and the way. So she's like, this person clearly loves you, knows you, but can't see where you're hurting or struggling in these bits.
Yeah.
And that bit really got me because this softness and gentleness that I feel my 18-month-old daughter really brings out in me, and my dog really brings out in me. And the bit of me that I really like, that I don't often show, even my closest, nearest, dearest, is this softer, vulnerable, not even vulnerable, just it's not even a vulnerable, it's just a different side of me that I think that I haven't been showing since the beginning of I can remember. I just always remember looking back, I can remember being really self-conscious from the first thing I can remember. And by being self-conscious, I was putting on a show or a role or a mask very, very early on. When you think little kids, when they say, oh, like little kids really show who you like are really themselves, I kind of don't really, I remember really just observing other people
Yes.
from a very young age, which makes me feel a bit sad.
That's a real giveaway, the observing and not necessarily being in, just
And not being in your body
not
or
being in your body, not being in
yourself.
life, not being in, just sort of being behind a screen. It's lonely because that's a wound. That's, we feel sort of, we're not connected. We don't feel, but we're trying to make it all work, trying to figure it out. And when we're really young, it's tough.
And when I have talked a little bit about it, people have said, oh, I wonder if I have. And I've just said, you know what? It is expensive at the moment because of, well, those of us in the UK, our health system, there's an awful lot of pressure, not on just the NHS, but the mental health side of the NHS. So if it's something that's really affecting you and you are able to have the resources to look into it. But there's also some really great books that are being written about it as well. I've grown up in a household, and I'm sure it will feel, maybe bits of it will feel similar to others, but it's like, oh, that could apply to anyone. So a few people have gone, well, I do all of that and I don't have ADHD, as if then your ADHD doesn't exist, or if,
Right.
and I've heard that from super smart, really close to me people who maybe it's just felt a bit like, oh, everybody's got ADHD these days, or everybody's got this, or which I think is an interesting reaction, and I wonder if maybe I would have had it if the shoe was on the other foot. But more than anything, I think that the conversation about us being neurodiverse, whether you've got ADHD or not, we are just not typical. We are hugely unique. I think that's really beautiful, and we can, for those that think, oh, people are blaming their behaviors on this, which may or may not be true, I think that in a way there's been a forgiveness piece for me. And also a little part of me went, oh my God, like what? I think a big part of me becoming a parent has been how not to fuck up my child. And actually, I was just with someone now whose mother's really much older and their daughter is getting married. And, it was interesting about the things that she would never bring up with her mother, even though she's a 50-something, strong, brilliant woman. She's like, I'm just never going to go there with my mother about things she said or did to me that affected my mental health and have so shaped the way I am in the world. And that she so was on top of or conscious of with her daughter. I've sort of, gone into a little other, but I want to be encouraging to my child and anyone that I love about what they want to explore, about what they know. Because a big thing for me is wanting to be less judgmental to myself and others. And like, is the opposite of judgmental compassion?
Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, more compassionate.
Great. Well, that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right. It really is. And when we are making good food choices.
Oh, I love how you brought that beautifully back.
I brought that back in because it's true, right? It's like we are being more compassionate.
The act of it.
And I want to talk about ultra processed foods because that's your thing in this book. It's very much everything we look at so much that's in the supermarkets is ultra processed. The thing that freaked me out was the stock cube being ultra processed, but I love a bit of an organic stock cube in a risotto, but that's something that's ultra processed. But what's great about the book is that you're saying, look, it's not about giving up everything. It's not about not eating crisps or not doing, from time to time we can pick and choose, but it's if your choices are mindful, loving, compassionate, eating good food is a radical act of compassion, right?
It is.
And so it's how to really bring that to life. And there was a fact that you mentioned how in 2022 household purchases of vegetables dropped by 14%.
I know, how sad is that?
I mean, it's unbelievable. And then also, but we have had all of those stats in about how food does affect, our health in terms of cancers. It really does. I mean, the stats are there. That's medically, scientifically proven. So there's reasons to be have this mindful, compassionate eating and do it sort of, I suppose, one meal at a time.
One meal at a time. Ultimately, as with anything, we could say it's your life. And the balance of it is, do you want to, I mean, there's a big chat at the moment, isn't there, about longevity? It's like,
Yes.
do you want a long, unhealthy life? Do you want a long life where you're, I don't know, but I think a lot of us want a full, healthy life for as long as possible, let's say. This is my 6th book. In my first book, I went back and read the intro because I'm always conscious of not repeating myself. But then I realized I am repeating myself because all of my shtick since the beginning has been, as somebody who grew up a bit like you with a mum that valued good food, but she didn't teach me how to cook. But I picked up and absorbed from her that the idea of being able to cook with what was in front of you and how you could maybe, roast a chicken or cook up extra eggs, and then that could go into the next meal, or you could make a big batch of rice and it could make rice fritters another day, or it could go into a rice soup the day after that, and all of that kind of thing. And so by osmosis, I guess I picked it up. Now, as a 30-something who feels that food can make me feel better or can make me feel worse. I think that's ultimately the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sleep can make you feel better, or lack of sleep can make you feel worse. Movement, all of it. What we watch, who we see, what media we follow. So with the 3 chances a day, for me, if I start at breakfast, I know that if I wake up well and don't pick up my phone, if I eat something decent, if I hear something great, so not stressful news, maybe something musical, maybe a beautiful story, or maybe like birdsong, then I am more likely to feel better
Yeah.
and less irritable. I'm maybe going to write that email that I need to write with more compassion for myself and the person I'm sending it to. Maybe I'm going to take on a task that I've been dreading and do it with more like a better kind of mindset. And the same is true with food. Like when I eat well at breakfast, the energy and the feeling of doing that for myself, like the knock-on effect goes throughout the day. So I do try and prioritize the breakfast. And as you mentioned with the cheer can sometimes play a part of it. And I'm laughing because I remember when my book came out, like the first book, and I was saying I didn't want to repeat the intro, I was talking then about highly processed food and super processed food. The term ultra processed food is about 10 years old. And what I wanted to say, and sorry, I'm really going around the houses here, but chia seeds. I remember talking about chia seeds in my first book and everyone was like, you're so strange. And it's so funny. It's an ancient seed.
Absolutely.
And it's not strange to a lot of people.
No.
And it's funny how a lot of the time we dismiss things and we roll our eyes and think, oh, just because what? It hasn't been seen in the UK.
Yeah.
But in the intro, I remember thinking about gut. I remember talking about gut health and digestion. And I remember my publishers, I've been with the same publishers for 12 years, 15 years. They publish Ottolenghi and Mary Berry and some great people, big and small. And they were like, no, you can't talk about the gut. I mean, do you remember when people talk about the gut left, right, and centre now?
Now it's
people
just,
talk about digestion.
Yeah, it's out there.
But do you remember when?
It's
I mean,
big
do
stuff.
you remember when you wouldn't say the word cancer?
I do remember that.
The
And also
shame and the words and
all of that, and also sugar not being outed really, like the truth of sugar and the acidic diet and what it does to our blood.
Don't take away people's fun. Like, oh, what, we can't eat sugar, and where we have come from is huge. And it's kind of sad how long it's taken us to come there, and the misinformation about food. There's this term, ultra processed foods. And I just want to say that because I don't want to in any way send out a message that makes people feel freaked out about food. And the term ultra processed food is a term founded by a group of Brazilian scientists about 10, 12 years ago. And it wasn't really meant for public consumption. It was a way of categorizing food into the different ways it was processed. So what I want to say now is about worrying about ultra-processed food. Yes, it's good to worry to an extent, but not worry in a way that stresses you out, because we know that stress is the worst.
Well, stress is part of the problem, right?
Part of the problem.
Yeah.
Where I think more and more people talk about ultra-processed food, just remember that it's an ultra-processed food group is ginormous, and it can be, basically, there's no one wrong food. You can have bread that's got 2 or 3 ingredients, or you could have bread in your local supermarket that's got 25 ingredients. In general, I would say move towards the bread that has less ingredients.
Yeah.
The same with a pasta sauce, the same with if you're grabbing a meal deal or a breakfast pot, look for the ones that have less ingredients, apart from if the ingredients are vegetables and herbs and spices. Then go crazy. If it's got lots of ingredients in it that you recognize, then that's fine. But on the whole, I understand that people would like to have better confidence in cooking. So you said you like my book, which I'm thrilled about, and you're someone that does like cooking when you've got the time. But I also want to write books and do feel like such a sense of like joy when people tell me that they felt left out of the cookery and home cooking world because they thought it was much more complicated. And it has, I think, sometimes become or seem to become more complicated than it is. So while I'm not a huge fan of shows like MasterChef and so on, in the way that some of my friends religiously watch it every night. It's their show, MasterChef, Bake Off. I know people that have been on all those shows. I think they're amazing cooks and all that. It's not my kind of show. I find it quite stressful. I don't know if it's because I'm in that industry or not. But I would love to see more shows where budget ingredients are given to regular people and we watch them cook. Or we see really skilled chefs teach people how to cook.
Isn't that your next TV show?
Well, I don't know if it's me, but I do pitch these shows and they don't come to fruition. And part of me would be terrified to be on screen anyway. But I would love more shows like that. Don't you think that'd be so helpful?
Listen, we all need a show like that. We all want to watch a show like that. I can't wait for that show. Let's visualize it.
Let's visualize it.
Let's just manifest
But I understand the competitive, entertaining shows are some people's. But this is the thing. When you read the quote about in 2002, sales of fruit and veg fell. So the cookbook market is up. There's more cookery TV shows than ever before, but we're cooking less.
So people are just watching it.
We're watching these competitive entertainment shows.
But ordering Deliveroo.
Yeah. And you might have some really, I don't know, I don't spend much time on Deliveroo, but there could be some healthier options. So I think one of the ways we can do it is, if batch cooking isn't your thing, it might be as simple as making a general go with the flow, not too rigid meal plan for the week, which involves maybe, if budget allows, a lovely meal out because that's nourishing.
Yeah, it is. It's
the act of it and looking forward to it is nourishing.
Absolutely,
knowing it's in the diary.
And I think that's what's been great about this conversation is just to sort of integrate these parts of our lives and so that we, each day we're meeting each day the way we should, and it's a journey and it's an adventure, but kind of is underpinned by a sense of prioritizing our well-being and our health, and that can be it doesn't mean you have to cook every meal because that there's joy in not cooking every meal if you can and if resources allow that. So it's been amazing having you on the Love Purpose Connection podcast, Melissa. Thank you so much for spending this time and imparting such incredible information and wisdom that is so helpful and will help so many people. And those words, Love, Purpose, Connection, what are they? How do you feel when you tune into those words, Melissa? I always ask people this at the end of the podcast.
I feel like I want to sort of whack them up on my fridge or my screensaver because they're important words to me. I've definitely felt the connection with you today and myself. Like I was really tuning into what I wanted to say without sort of planning what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And you asked such lovely questions and it reinvigorated to me like my purpose, which is hopefully helping make healthier eating like fun and more accessible, and love, and reminding me of the love that I have. Talking to you, I always feel like I come away loving myself a bit more. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
That's going to make me emotional.
I felt really emotional today. And do you know what? With you, I don't feel afraid of my emotions. So that's really, I love you for that.
Oh, well, I'm so pleased, Melissa. It's such an honour and such a joy to have you here and us doing what we do. Thank you, my love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Love, Purpose, Connection with me, Estelle Bingham. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. And if you really liked it, then leave me a review so I can keep doing what I love, healing one heart at a time. You can also follow me, estelle.bingham, on Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest releases. If you feel in need of some extra guidance, then my book, Manifest Your True Essence, could be helpful. You can find it online or in any major bookshop. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching, and I will join you on the next episode of the Love Purpose Connection podcast.